be with you this afternoon and to deliver this final address to you. So the topic of my talk is the digital dreamscape, and it's a look into what the next 30 years of our life looks like. I just want to see this is not on. Does not seem to, other clicker. I picked up the wrong clicker. Okay, right clicker. That's it. So it's a view as to what is the next 30 years of our lives going to look like. Now get a show of hands of who is excited about where our next 30 years is going. Seeing a few. Who's got fear around the next 30 years? So we got basically some mixed feelings around that, on excitement and fear. Can I get a show of hands who feels that the pace of life is just getting faster and faster and faster? Okay, now that's a very different view. All of a sudden, a lot more hands have gone up. And there's a very good reason why it's getting faster and faster. I'm going to go and delve into a bit of that. And I certainly, for one, do feel this. I feel that there just isn't enough hours in the day. There's not enough days in the week to get everything done. And life just seems to be going so fast, so fast. Now, the reason for that is twofold. On the one hand, we have a set amount of time in our lives. Now, the average person in 2018 will live to 70 years of age. So 70 years of age, I started thinking, well, how do I maximize that time? How do I get the most out of the years that I have in my life? So I started analyzing, what do I spend my time doing? Now, do you know that the average person sleeps about 7 to 8 hours a day? And this adds up to 25 years. 25 years of our life that we spend sleeping. Now, of course, in the awake time, we go to work. And if you take your working life, that adds up to 10.3 years of your life working. Then you've got to drive to work and you've got to drive back home as well. And that takes 4.3 years of your life as well. When you get home, you're going to cook a meal, and that's 2.5 years of your life that you're going to spend cooking. You spend 3.66 years of your life eating, and then 1.1 years of your life cleaning up afterwards. And of course, after you've had your dinner, you want to go and you want to relax and watch some TV. And all that TV adds up, believe it or not, 9.1 years of your life, of that 70-year lifespan. 9.1 years is spent watching TV, and that is not binge watching Game of Thrones as well. So you spent 9.1 years watching TV and all the rest. You spend 1.5 years of your life in the bathroom, of which 92 days is spent on the toilet, believe it or not. You spent 48 days in the 70-year lifespan having sex. That's good news. And it's also not in one go, please. The average woman spends 1 year of her life looking inside her cupboard, staring at it, deciding what to wear. And the average man spends 1 year of his life staring at women. Now you add all of this up, and it comes to 57 years. 57 years that we almost have no say in how we're going to spend that time. So we're left with 13 years on which we have some kind of choice. Now this might seem like a little bit dismal at the moment. There is going to be a brighter side to it, which I will tell you about in a moment. And of those years, our interaction with technology is huge. We spend roughly 9 hours of every day staring at screens, having a digital interaction with our screen. But here's the second reason why life feels that it's going faster and faster. And unfortunately, the reason is because we are getting older. Every one of us. Unless anybody here is getting younger, please let me know. I want to know the secret. So when you're 1 year of your life, that 1 year is 100% of your life. By the time you turn 50, 1 year is 1/50th of your life. So what it feels like, each year as we get older and older, that year feels like to us, like it's shorter and shorter and shorter. I don't know if you cast your mind back to when you were a child and you were remembering that there was 2 weeks to go until you were going on a holiday, and how long that 2 weeks seemed to go on for. So here's the view over here. This is not a Plascon choose your paint color graph. This over here shows you what those years feel like. When you are 90, that 1 year of your life is 1.11% of your life. And so it feels like it gets shorter and shorter the older we get as well. Now, on the bright side, I've already told you that 2018, the average lifespan of a person around the world, that's a global average, is 70 years. But this guy, his name is Professor Aubrey de Grey, and he's a biomedical gerontologist. He studies anti-aging, and they've got an institute called the Sense Organization, sense.org. And I encourage you to go and look at sense.org if you're interested in how to stay younger and what the research is happening and what's going on about that kind of research. And he has said that the person who is going to live to 1,000 years old has already been born today. So it is most likely going to be one of our kids who is, you know, one year old, 2 years old at the moment. But that child has the potential to live to 1,000. And it's because of the technology that I'm going to show you and going to speak about and our rate of technology progression that we have this ability that we will live to these grand old years of 1,000 years of age. And how our lives will change when we live to 1,000 years. If you can imagine, what will you do with all that time? Well, you will most likely break it up into chunks. And you say, well, for the next 50 years, I'm just going to study piano. I'm going to become a wonderful pianist. And then I'm going to spend 50 years studying accountancy. Well, your choice. Okay. But that is the options that will be open to us. So what I want you to feel through this presentation is to feel the pace of the change. To feel that we are on this rapidly accelerating ride, this wonderful, fantastic, exciting ride. I want you to see the opportunities that are there for you and for your businesses and be part of the process. Don't sit back and say, oh, you know, this is a new cell phone, I don't want to touch it, I don't know how it works, or here's a new piece of technology, I'm fearful of it. Embrace it. It's going to happen whether you like it or not, so be part of that process. I don't know how you've felt about what the next 30 years looks like. Do you feel that it's going to be this futuristic city over here? This looks like a futuristic view of Cape Town. And is it going to be flying cars? And have you thought about what it looks like? Now, the good news is that the United Nations commissioned the Millennium Project. And this is 3,500 people around 56 nodes around the world that are committed to thinking about what the world is going to look like in 30 years' time. And they focus on certain problems and certain issues, and they are classed into these 15 different categories. Things like sustainable development, climate change, clean water, population and resources, democratization, etc. And you can read the rest of them on the screen. Now, these 15 things are all going to be problems and are problems in our current environment. And this task force in the Millennium Project is tasked with figuring out how we are going to solve these issues. Because if you solve one, and I'll give you an example over here. If you solve, for example, health issues, the immediate knock-on effect of health issues is people will live longer. Less people will die. Now, this seems like a wonderful thing. Well, what does it do to the other 15 points? You go back to point number 3 there on population and resources, it puts a strain on resources. And that might be a strain on clean water, for example. And so number 2 comes into the picture over there. The amazing thing is that point number 14, science and technology, impacts all of these things, all of these other points. And that's why it is so important where we are. So one thing we know for sure is change is coming. And it's not only coming, change is actually here today. Change is impacting us every single day, so we should embrace it. Now, this on the board over here is Gartner's hype curve. It's something that really excites me. It's something I wait every year for that July, August timeframe to go and see what is going to be the latest technology. And what it does is if you have a look on the curve at the bottom, there are 5 different areas. There is an innovation trigger. There's a peak of inflated expectation where that technology is going to be the next big thing. Next, we have the Trough of Disillusionment, the area where everybody goes, oh dear, this thing is not as good as we thought it was going to be. It's given us a whole lot of new problems. And if you just think to cryptocurrency as an example, when the first cryptocurrency exchange got hacked, everybody thought, oh, this is terrible. And so it went into this trough of disillusionment. And then it goes through the slope of enlightenment and eventually the plateau of productivity. The dots that you see, the triangles, mean that technology will be mainstream in more than 10 years. If it's a blue dot, a dark blue, it's 5 to 10 years, and a light blue is 2 to 5 years, where it will be mainstream. Where Gartner has been wrong on these things has not been in what they've placed on the hype curve, but on the time period. Where they have said it would take 10 years, it's taken 5 years. Where they've said it's taken 5 years, it's taken 2 years. And so what we can get from this is the pace is increasing. So look at some of the things that are there. Biotech, cultured or artificial tissue. Well, we are already reading about synthetic meat, the ability to eat a meat that does not come from an animal, that is cultured. Flying autonomous vehicles. They say more than 10 years. I'm prepared to put money on it that it will be here in the next 5 years. We will have flying autonomous vehicles. Smart dust, and I'll go into some of these technologies. 4D printing, brain-computer interfaces, digital twins. These are amazing things that we're going to be experiencing in our lifetime. And if you think this is just science fiction, I'd like to take you back to the 2009 hype curve and just look at some of the things that were put on that curve. So here you have it right at the bottom, 3D flat panel displays. 3D flat panel displays? This sounds like science fiction, we thought, in 2009. Well, very common today. Video search, we have. Mobile robots, you've seen some of them driving around the floor outside over here. And in 2009, we said mobile robots would be only available in more than 10 years' time. 3D printing. 3D printing was making its way up a hype curve. You can go into any retail IT store and buy a 3D printer. E-books, Kindles. This was the stuff that we were looking at in 2009 that we thought was way out there. Cloud computing. Cloud computing is part of our daily lives. There's not a person here who doesn't use a device that is connected to the cloud. So let me take you back to 2018, where we are now, and that technology that we're going to be experiencing. The technology is classified into 3 major trends that are going to affect our lives. The first is AI, artificial intelligence everywhere. Artificial intelligence will be embedded into our devices. It will be used by the companies that we deal with on a daily basis. It will be everywhere. It's deep learning. We're speaking about artificial general intelligence as well, the ability for the technology that we're using to understand a problem or an issue even if it hasn't been taught. Cognitive computing. Transparently immersive experiences is the next major grouping. Augmented reality, virtual reality, brain-computer interfaces, 4D printing. And then digital platforms. 5G is going to accelerate us further into this, things like digital twin, edge computing. So these are the 3 main things: AI, transparently immersive experiences, and digital platforms. Now you saw on that curve, smart dust, and I want to delve into a few of these technologies. This is smart dust. This is something that was made, this particular one, by Hitachi, but there are many different variations. If you can see that person's finger, in between one of the lines of the fingerprint is a smart dust mote. And this smart dust mote can actually transmit information. So what is the application? If you're studying weather patterns, for example, you can release millions of these smart dust motes into the environment. And if you look at what is included on a single mote there, on that tiny little black speck on that person's finger, that has the ability to collect information, to transmit information to a central receiver, and to project that data forward into the cloud or into an edge device as well. So the applications for this are numerous. Things like looking at pollution in rivers, putting these smart dust into rivers. But they're also speaking about us ingesting these smart dust motes. And if you think about it going into your bloodstream, being absorbed into the bloodstream, or injected into the bloodstream, and then monitoring continuously a diabetic's blood glucose level. No longer a need to actually prick your finger and take your blood glucose levels. These dust motes will alert you before you know that there's any problem in your blood sugar levels. This is the concept of digital twins. So what a digital twin does is it takes the ability to take a physical product or a physical item, and in this instance it's a ship, and take the data and simulate that data on a computer, but update it continuously with the real data from the real thing. So here's a ship that's sailing between an icy area. Lots of stresses being placed on its hull. So they could only, in the past, simulate what kind of forces would damage that ship. But what they're able to do now with digital twins is take the current data and see that if it's suddenly incredibly stressed, run simulations quickly on the real environment and say, you are 4 hours away to a disaster where that hull will crack and give you a problem. And it's not only applicable to physical things like ships and aeroplanes and cars, etc. It is also applicable to ourselves. We can create a digital twin of our human body, taking our blood pressure into account, our cholesterol levels, our blood sugar levels, etc. And then we can run simulations on that to see what are our health risks. And if we have ingested these smart dust motes, we can continuously update this information to get that back. So we will know before we are in any danger of having a heart attack when that heart attack is going to come on, and hopefully get to a hospital in time, circumvent it with surgery. These are volumetric displays, very similar to a 3D display, except you can walk right around it and interact with it. And then I'm going to speak briefly about brain-computer interfaces. So this is Elon Musk, and Elon Musk created a company called Neuralink, and they are doing studies now into how can we take data and embed it in our brains. How can we augment ourselves? And we already are augmented individuals. If you think that, wow, I'm not stepping anywhere near a brain-computer interface, well, have a look already at how we interact. Take your cell phone, leave it at home for a day, and see how you panic when somebody asks you something you don't know, where you would normally just reach for your phone and Google it. You're already augmented. We already have knowledge databases at the end of our arm, and the only difference with the brain-computer interface is it will plug directly into our brain, or it will work wirelessly. So we've already been through amazing change. Just a quick example over here is this micro SD card over here. From 2005 to 2014, we went from 128 megabytes to 128 gigabytes on the same device. That's a 1,000-fold increase in that amount of time. Now, the reason why we're seeing these huge changes, it used to be attributed to Moore's law. Anybody heard of Moore's law? Right? So if you're buying computers, and you've been buying computers through your career, one of the major issues in doing that is, do you buy this model today? Is a new model coming out next month? Is it coming out next year? Should you wait? How long will that technology be relevant? And that's been because of Moore's law. Moore's law said that the computing power on any particular device will double every 12 to 18 months. And that's how we could predict our advancement in this area. But now, it has rapidly accelerated more. And the reason why it's rapidly accelerated more is it's not only Moore's law that's influencing us, it's all of these as well. Fiber law, which is Butter's law, where the amount of data that can move through that fiber pipe doubles every 9 months. Disk law, Crider's law, where the amount of information that can fit on a particular disk device doubles every 13 months. And then the most important is Metcalfe's law, which is the law of networking. It's the law of why we're all here, because you're networking together. You're using the power of networking to improve your ability to achieve certain things. Now, if you think of Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and the list goes on, if you have an idea today, you can publish that idea, and boy, if that idea is good, that idea can be worldwide in a matter of hours. It can spread throughout the world. So the power to disseminate an idea now, and the power to disseminate technology is never been so quick as it is at the moment. And that's why we're experiencing our life feeling like it's getting faster and faster, is because this technology is exponential. So let's have a look. Let's go through these next 5, 10, 20 years and see what are we going to feel What is it going to feel like with these technology changes that we're going to experience? Well, in the next 5 years, if you see this curve over here, what you're seeing is on the y-axis, it's the increase in current technological ability. On the bottom line, it's the amount of years. So in 1 to 5 years, in a 5-year period, we will experience a 32 times increase in our technological advancement. 32 times. Do you think that's a lot? 32 times? Sure. 32 times more advanced, it's quite impressive. But let's look at what happens in 10 years' time. 10 years' time, we will be 1,000 times more advanced than we are today. So 2028. In 2028, we will be 1,000 times more advanced. It makes that 32 times increase in our technological ability, only 3% of the total change. And it's a reason of this technological hypercurve that we're seeing over here, this exponential curve, is the reasons why small companies today can do amazing things, because we have the power of cloud computing. And cloud computing allows a small company, a startup, to have the power of thousands of computers at their fingertips, at their demand, and utilize it as they need that power, whereby in the past, this was only the domain of the large companies like the Microsofts, the IBMs, etc. So these capabilities increase hundreds of times each year, 1,000 times more advanced. And if you're thinking, no, that's not possible, I showed you this a few minutes ago. And this was 1,000 times more advanced. So we've already experienced this. This was in a 9-year period. In 20 years, we will be 1,000,000 times more advanced. What does that mean? Well, firstly, the first 14 years seem almost flat. It's like nothing happened during that time. We're talking about things like regenerative medicine, the ability to, oh, my liver's not so good, I'm just going to grow a new liver and have it transplanted. We are here in the reality, in this 20-year time period, of the brain-computer interface being a solid technology. Now, what would that be? Well, I envisage this, that we will experience things like the ability to download software into our brain. If we're going to Paris for the weekend, we will be able to download French into our brain, experience it, speak French for the weekend, and then because they know the degradation patterns that happen to our memories, when you get back the next week and you've only bought it for the weekend, it would be a little bit sketchy. Bonjour. And then at the end of the week, you're like, bon, something. I don't know. So this will be it, biological, photon, and quantum computing as well. And if you think that I'm talking again science fiction on the brain stuff, I'm really not. These experiments are happening today. They have taken mice, and they've put a mouse into a maze, and it has learned its way on how to get through the cheese. And then they've then taken that particular mouse, and they've connected its brain to another mouse who has never been into the maze. They take this mouse, they put it into the maze, and lo and behold, straight to the cheese. It knows the memory. So this technology is possible. Have a look at this video.
Our brains are remarkable, miraculous even, but they can't do everything. Unless we give them a little high-tech help.
When children see the movie The Matrix, and they see Neo jacking an electrode and all of a sudden becoming a kung fu master, the first question they ask is, how can I get one? Well, this does not yet exist, but it's actually physically possible.
The key to transforming learning from an organic process to a machine-like downloading of information is a squiggly bit of brain known as the hippocampus.
The hippocampus is the gateway to memories. Short-term memories are stored right here in the prefrontal cortex, but eventually they have to be transferred to long-term memories, and that's where the hippocampus comes in.
This part of the brain doesn't store the memories, but it does the appropriate conversion.
At the University of Southern California, bioengineer Ted Berger has already proven that a computer chip can replace or enhance brain function.
Right now, what our prosthesis does is to convert a code that's kind of in the middle of the hippocampus to what would be the output of the hippocampus.
they've been able to take mice and access the electrical signals coursing through the hippocampus and record them. And then when they shot the message back into the hippocampus, the mouse remembered the task.
We found that we can not only restore long-term memories, we can enhance the animal's ability to remember. You could think about using devices like this to greatly enhance human memory and to shorten the cycle for learning in terms of downloading huge quantities of memory at a single time.
Chips that augment our hippocampus could very well help us learn faster. So will that make them a must-have for competitive parents?
At that point, it could create an arms race in elementary school. Rumors go out that, well, Jones's kid, he's been enhanced, and our Johnny has to compete with this enhanced kid.
The reality is that with these kinds of technologies, they do not get distributed to everyone at the same time. Some people get it first, some people get it better.
As a society, we have to really think long and hard about who gets this. If it's just the wealthy, that there are real dangers that they will use it to consolidate their power and their wealth.
So some wonderful moral and ethical issues that we're going to be having to deal with at the same time. I mean, you saw little Johnny over there. The question was asked in the class, and he was like, what? So let's take it to 30 years. In 30 years, it's 1 billion times more advanced than we are today. In 1 billion years, we can't even describe. We don't have the language to actually say what 1 billion times more advanced looks like. And most likely, we will all be alive to experience this during this time. So the world will be completely different. We're talking about artificial general intelligence and virtual assistants everywhere as well. Quantum computing is going to take us to the next level. Now, the computing that you know of today, in bits and bytes, it will either be a 0 or a 1. And quantum computing can be a 0 and a 1 at the exact same time. So it really does amazing things in the amount of computing power that we're going to experience and what can be done. I mentioned 4D printing earlier on. This is 4D printing. What happens here is the item is printed out, and as it comes into contact with the environment, it starts to form into a shape. So it assembles itself in a way. And they are thinking of using this type of technology on the colonization of Mars. Before the first people will go to Mars, we will be sending up these huge printers, which will be able to print out the buildings that the people will be living in, and they will automatically form into the shapes that they need to form. Nanobots, the ability to inject these things into our body for them to go and seek out cancerous cells, for example, target them, destroy them. On the road there, we will have this virtual and augmented reality. And this is a product as well. It's also Hitachi. It's a smart screen for your car. So while you're driving to work, and most likely in a couple of years' time, we won't be driving as well, but we'll be sitting in the car and we'll be experiencing this, knowing where our nearest Starbucks is, having a discussion with our boss, seeing that red car that's in front over there. You're a little bit concerned about it. Why? Because she's got a driving under the influence conviction, so we'll stay clear of that car. So you'll have all of this information. And then artificial intelligence will be everywhere around us, everywhere. And already we are seeing amazing things in terms of medicine with things like IBM's Watson that has been able to diagnose better than doctors at the moment. So they certainly are looking at every aspect of what can be enhanced with artificial intelligence, what can be made better, and we need to adapt accordingly and look where are we going to play a part in this new future that we're going to. And it's the service side as well. Here's a quick example of a hotel in Japan that is totally run by robots and artificial intelligence.
いません。変なホテルへようこそ。チェックインのお客様は1を押してください。チェックアウトのお客様は右のタッチパネルのチェックアウトを押してください。
So I'm not so sure about being checked in by a dinosaur, but I suppose in Japan maybe it's different. I don't know. So we are augmented, and any view that you want to see that this technology is already infiltrating our daily lives, just have a look at people on their phones and the amount of times that we interact with our device. As I said, we spend 9 hours of a day staring at some digital screen. 3.33 hours of that is your phone. So watch yourself with that and how much time you're spending. These people aren't working, they aren't checking social media. What they're doing is they're playing Pokemon Go. Did anybody here play Pokemon Go? No one. Okay, so what it was a game that it used augmented reality, where in a room like this, I would hold my phone up here, and I would see certain of these Pokemon characters amongst you in the room, and you would fling these balls at them in order to capture those characters, and people played globally. Now, the amazing thing with this game is not really the concept of the augmented reality and how it involved the game, but the amazing thing is how quickly it caught on. So the company who developed it started it on the 4th of July. That's when they released it. By the 10th of July of that year, it had gone to over 1 million people playing the game. And the only reason why they could actually scale their business, and it didn't close down with that, was because of cloud technology. Because they could scale the amount of servers they needed in order to supply the demand of their computing power as needed. It also went global. It wasn't intended to go global, but as I said, because of Metcalfe's law, this is what happens. You're no longer in control of this technology. So it went global in that 6-day period. So we are living in an amazing time. It really is. And I would encourage you really just to get involved and embrace it, because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. So there's no point in feeling the fear around it. There's only point in embracing it and seeing how can you involve this in your life and how can we improve our lives. Change is not only coming, change is here. It is here. We are living in this fast, rapidly evolving society, and it's exciting. So I hope that with this presentation today, you certainly have felt the change. I hope that you feel a little bit uneasy about what's coming down the line, because that uneasiness leads you to action, to see the opportunities, and finally be part of the process. So thank you, everybody. I hope you've had a great conference. Thank you very much.